All right. Well, good morning, Paul. Thank
Hello.
you for joining us.
Thanks for
uh,
having me, Kyle.
Sunday morning. Um, so this is a Q&A or conversation with a class that I teach called publication design, where everyone in the class is interested in publishing in one way or another. Some are more like writers in the MFA program, and others are more like graphic designers. So yeah, it's a small group of graduate students, and spend the first half of the semester talking about like the basics of book design, and then we get to work with a living author such as yourself, um, figuring out how to work with a live manuscript because one of the things that's kind of special about this program is that we do exercises that get put in a drawer, but then we also work on like live projects that go out into the world. So it's
hmm
cool for the students to get something on their resume and to have the opportunity to engage with people like yourself. And then, yeah, actually make a real book instead of just a mock-up. So that's what we're doing today.
Right on.
Um,
Happy to join and talk with you.
yeah. Well, could you just tell us a little bit about I know this is a big question, but like who are you? Where are you today? And how did you get there?
That's a good little start to the convo. I'm Paul Maziar. I'm a writer. I Today I'm in Los Angeles, and that's sort of unique to the last 10 years because I'd been in Portland, Oregon before. And I just moved here in June. So I here in November, I'm so happy that I'm currently kind of blinded by the sun just pouring into my office windows. I love aspects of Portland and living there, but the gray and the rain, the constant, you know, gloom, just I think I had my fill. So it's been really nice to come back and spend time in Southern California where it's always felt like home. So yeah, I mean the world is vastly different. I don't know if you just heard that there was a big boom. It's probably backfiring on automobile, but it seems like the world has changed a lot over the last 2 years, and I my writing has changed too, and I think that I've just tried my damnedest to spend as much time outside as possible, and so I think I'm pretty sure that that's evident, like reading some of the recent writings and what's in that manuscript you guys have taken a look at. Um, so yeah, it. I think that you might relate to this, but uh, since the pandemic and how our social relations have changed and kind of become curtailed, I think that access to language has changed too, or the use of it. And especially talking about writing or talking about art. I also write about art, as you know, Kyle, and that access to language of like conceptual things and concept ideas about art and poetry, it's actually kind of difficult to do. So for me anyway. Um, so yeah, I've just kind of been you know gazing out at nature and not thinking about you know huge high-minded concepts. So yeah, like I've just been kind of tinkering and writing as wildly as I possibly can.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I've just been kind of hitting reset, I think, on just the in any way the writing that I've been doing.
Do you have your book? Or let me get my book. I'll be right
What is
back.
it? Yeah,
Your book. My copy
cool.
of your book.
Oh yeah, okay. The yellow one?
Yes.
Yeah. I was gonna talk about that.
um, this is a collection of Paul's. Well, why don't you tell us what this is in your own words?
Yeah. It's a collection of I'll bring my copy too. Um It's a collection of essays and reviews. There's like one interview in here, and then fragments, which are like titled digressions, and it's in the back of the book, and I can kind of just bounce from any given subject, and they're all kind of in these little aphoristic chunks.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of a smattering of different things. And I was going to bring it up because if and when we talk about layout and design and that sort of stuff, the designer who I worked with, who designed this book, did an amazing job. It's one of my favorite layouts. Her name's Raquel Hazel. She has her own press called Salt Press, and yeah.
And one thing, well, two things about this book. Well, one thing about this book, and then about designing books in general. I have a very special relationship to this book because when it came out, it was around the time there was a what they would call a winter storm. Texas doesn't really have winter, but we got a little bit of snow and lost power for 4 or 5 days here. And one of the things I love about this book is that the type is so big, I could comfortably read it by candlelight. I didn't have any other, and it's like 400, almost 500 pages. So it has a very special place in my memory as, the city was silent. It was cold. And, I had this book to keep me warm, and I could read it in the dark, which was amazing.
That's so cool.
Yeah, well, thank you for writing it. And also, I think just a good piece of advice for people who are just getting into designing books or publishing them is to read everything an author has written. So I should have assigned your book at the beginning of the semester so we could all not only get a sense of where you're coming from as a critic who's also a poet, but to envision how the book that we make is going to look next to this book on the bookshelf. Because typically we organize books by the author's last name.
Right.
So I try to get everything. In some cases, that's hard when you're working with a writer who's got like 60 books out. But I do try to read everything and to get a copy of it.
That's great. That's a really admirable way to approach another writer.
Yeah. And is this your first book of poetry?
Yeah, it'll be my first full length. I've had a couple of chapbooks come out. Yeah. So it's super exciting. I mean, what a thrill. It's been years of just, I have these notebooks just stacked up, a lot of it untyped, and then a whole bunch of different manuscripts that are just, floating around in the void of the hard drive. Yeah, but that the type aspect, the size of it, I mean, I just opened to a random spread. It's massive. And when the manuscript was sent over and the layout was done, I didn't really have a sense for how huge it was until I got the proof in the mail. And I opened the box and opened the book, and I was pretty shocked, honestly. And I didn't know what to think of it. And I showed the book to some people that were close by at the time, and their impression of the fact of the huge font size was exactly to the I guess the mindset of the designer, because the people had said, oh, so this is writing about art, there's going to be a lot of, I mean, hopefully not too many, but fancy terms that some people might not readily know, who aren't engaged in that type of stuff. And so the idea is the text is large and accessible, so you can kind of just breeze through it. And that was Raquel's whole idea, to make it, yeah, as clear as possible on the page, you know, when you thumb through. So so yeah, it didn't take long to just to start reading through and loving that, you know, part of it.
Right.
But it is kind of crazy that the font is huge. And then the other thing is it makes the book pretty I mean, this is like a, did you say this is a good, someone said this is a good doorstop or something like that because it's so big.
Not me.
Anyway, yeah, it sounds like a disparagement, but no, it's just they're just giving me some hell. But
Yeah.
yeah.
And this is a good time. I could also mention that when designing a book, as you know, I'm sure you have a lot of art books in your collection, like
Mhm.
you have this book by Joe Brain.
I want that book.
Oh, okay. It's a great big book, but one problem with it is that it's the kind of book that you would read on a table. It's too big to hold in your hands.
Right.
But unlike your book, the type in this book is very, very small. So when the book is, you know, 3 feet from your eyes, and the type is very small, and in this case, actually like black type on gray paper or something, it's really, really hard to read.
Oh yeah.
Where you used the term chapbook earlier, which you can hold right up to your face. So you can make a very, very small type and get a lot of words into a very small format.
Yeah.
Some people in this class might not know what a chapbook is. Could you tell us what that is briefly?
Yeah, well, I pulled aside a couple of them because I'll show you one of them. I got this in the mail. I ordered it. There's a new small press, Auric press, and this beautiful little chapbook, which off the cuff, you know, the chapbook is a shorter. It's a shorter manuscript in length. I think that it's got to be something like under 50 pages, right? And then usually they have a interesting binding, oftentimes like bound by hand, whether saddle stitched or sewn like this. I think this came in the mail, and I'd ordered it, and it came through sometime in the pandemic. And again, I just was, I had this sense that I was a bit out of the loop of, you know, publishing and seeing other poets and being around other writers and reading things out loud together. You know, this is the kind of thing that, this is our lives, right? The way that we like to operate, you know, among poetry and each other, right? So I got this in the mail and during the pandemic, and I was just so pleasantly surprised at the just how nicely made this chapbook is and designed too. And to your earlier point, the font is pretty small. I think the typeface is like, I'm gonna guess 11 or 10 point. But yeah, they're when they're done well, the chapbook, it's a real thing of art, I think.
Absolutely. Speaking of a book as a work of art, would you like to begin by sharing some books that you think are well designed or beautiful, or where form and content come together, or text and image? Just a little show and tell so we get a sense of what you like as an author.
Nice. Yeah, that sounds good. So there's this book as art object thing that is relevant to this little pamphlet, To Do, and it's the form of the publication also matches the content, I guess. This is Noah Dillon's pamphlet that I think he made it during the pandemic. And it's all to-do lists from notebooks. And it's pretty incredible. I mean, the paper is just, Xerox paper. The cover stock is it's a little bit thicker, but this thing is basically just a crude stack of paper cut and stapled in the center. He's written a short introductory essay, which is so well written, and it's satisfying in itself. Just talking about diaries and lists and the context of the pandemic and keeping notes and things like that. It's a really fun, and it's a very strange publication. It's all
handwritten.
Yeah, notes to himself, checklists, things like this. And he's redacted certain information so that see where it's blurry right here?
Yeah.
So that people that he knows and things about his personal life are not revealed by a sleuth.
Right.
A creepy sleuth. But it's just the fact that someone would think to do this, put it in print, put it online, get it out there into the world is just I think it's really wonderful. And it's got to be a pretty pricey endeavor because it's also in color.
Interesting.
Noah's written this essay about the positive, or I can't remember the title, but it's about the beneficial aspect of dumb in art. And this fits the bill for sure. And even though it's all really, really boring, the all of the lists and everything, it's almost like gossip or something. You can't take your eyes off of it. And one of the really cool things in here that almost it stopped me in my tracks and confused the hell out of me was the aspect of trompe l'oeil. There's his highlighter markings in here.
Oh wow.
And then when you start turning the pages more, there's this must be like the actual notebook, but it's stapled right here.
Interesting.
Inexplicably. And inside it's all of the highlighted stuff. And then you keep going, and this I think you'd really like this, Kyle. There's this sticky note.
Oh, nice.
Speaking of the trompe l'oeil thing, you think, oh, that looks just like a sticky note, and then it is. It's like a magic trick.
Mm-hmm.
It's the coolest thing. But I don't know. I really loved it. And then at the end, there's this little end note, and it says, a friend speculates that 90% of all writing is receipts. Since Babylon, the cryptic histories of humanity are lingered in documents such as these, which is just wonderful in itself. And then the font, if that's what it is, or it looks like a stamp, maybe I should ask Noah. But I just love it. I love how it looks.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually think that it would be pretty cool to see a book of poems with that same type treatment, that all caps and kind of faded look to it. I really like it.
Yeah.
Anyway, Noah Dillon.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And then that kind of reminded me of the Bill Berkson's Frank O'Hara notebook.
Oh yeah.
Have you seen this?
I've seen it. I don't have it though.
It's beautiful. And right when you open it, it's you're made aware of the fact that this is supposed to be, at least the beginning is supposed to be exactly like you're flipping through his the actual notebook.
Right.
Bill Berkson collected all of these ephemera and notes. That's a little note on top of the notebook pasted in. and handwritten notes on Frank O'Hara.
It's interesting to see you holding this book, because I think of Frank O'Hara and the poet critic tradition and all that Bill learned from Frank in terms of that relationship, and then there's you,
Yeah, well,
sort
I
of
think,
a third generation, I guess.
yeah, I mean, without trying to make it all too precious or something, like Bill Bergson's the reason why I started writing about art, and I just devoured all that I could find of his writings, and then I saw that he was one of the editors for Art Critical, and I was like, well, I'm going to write to them and see if I can, get a shot at writing a review or two. And then it just so happened that Noah Dillon, whose book I just showed, the pamphlet, he was my editor at Art Critical. So he was just a great editor, and we had a lot of amazing dialogues about art through that experience. So yeah, I forgot about that whole connection. I mean, I didn't forget about it, but I just forgot to mention it. But so yeah, this is just a really great art object. But it's also most of it is just great to read too on the page. And then you get to the end of the copied parts of the book, and then they have all of these pages that include things that are tipped into the notebook, so it looks like it's actually in there.
Well, that's kind of interesting, because
yeah,
Noah's book, we had the staple and the post-it note that could have been sort of facsimiles, but it's an interesting distinction between art and reality, where you can
right,
have a picture of a post-it note or an actual post-it note
right.
in the book.
Yeah, and there's nothing. I think I mean, I probably misused the word tipped in. That would indicate it's actually in the book, this book, but it's not. It's just a copy, photocopy like this.
Right.
This is a really weird decision, don't you think? There was this page, a white sheet over this article or whatever it is, and the designer decided to, or whomever decided to, keep it this way. And the interesting thing about that is this was published after Bill Berkson had passed away. So there's an eerie quality to this when you look through it, like maybe like you're not supposed to be seeing it. It's not finished.
Right.
Which I don't feel like would be betraying anybody. I think that Constance Llewellyn, his wife, had a big hand in putting this book out.
Right.
But anyway, at the end of it, or after the last page, they have this like poster.
Oh, wow.
Such a cool publication. But yeah, at the end they start all over with the book, and it's all typewritten.
Oh, I see. This is a bit like the Far Flowered Shore. Did you get that one?
Yeah. Oh no. It was like kind of like a box set, right?
It was, yeah, with kind of like this one, two facsimiles of Bill's notebooks, and then there was a third volume where we transcribed it.
Yeah, that first of all, I missed the boat on that, and I wanted a copy so bad, and I tried to find it, but it's out of print, right?
I'll look under the bed and see if I can find one for you.
Oh wow.
There might still be some.
But I like this so much because it like adheres to the fidelity relative to everything that was handwritten, but it's I don't know, the layout is somehow really pleasing. It's really clean and straightforward, and the typeface is something like Helvetica. I'm not sure what it is. I should look in the back, but
oh yeah,
I just really enjoy that, and that it's almost like centered on the page. is to me really satisfying too.
Yeah.
And I've kind of, I don't want to flip the script too quickly, but I've set aside a couple of other things that are like that. Like this old book by Alan Davies,
Oh, yeah.
named who did this book? Oh, it's called This. I don't know about it. This Press.
I think that's Barrett Watton.
But yeah, it's very, very straightforward. No titles, kind of a dumb font that you wouldn't even recognize or remember. You know, it's like out of your, to me, it's almost like you get out of the way of having to care about how it looks really, and you just get right to the also very clear lines of poetry.
Right.
I mean, some of it's really obscure and absurd almost, the poetry itself, but anyway, super into the design of it.
These are good things to note.
And then 11 poems for Philip Guston,
Oh, yeah.
Granary. This also has two aspects to it that we've talked about, which one is like this humongous font,
Yes.
and two, it's almost centered on the page. I mean, yeah, in many cases it's centered on the page. And I think some people are with me and really enjoy that. And other people, for whatever reason, are not into it. They're more, I think, more used to seeing the title up toward the top of the page. I don't know what you have to, what do you think about that? Do you have an opinion one way or the other about the centering?
It kind of depends, I think, on the form of the poem.
Yeah, right.
Um, Sometimes, yeah, if you're working sort of with a more or less consistent form, like 16 lines, for example, um, I would build the book around that. But then if there's a book or a manuscript such as your own, where there's like wildly different forms, then you kind of have to design the book around that accommodation. So
Definitely.
in the latter sense, I'd be more inclined to move things around, go with a
Mhm.
larger format, and then find a good resting place for each poem.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So I'm seeing a little bit of a trend here.
Yeah.
Mostly, we've been looking at sans serif books, a lot of like text and image. We've looked at handwritten books as well, all paperbacks so far, and some have color.
Yep. Oh, except for Bill's, that Franco Hare notebook's a hardback.
Oh, that's right. Yep.
A lot of color, yeah, printing, and that's again like prohibitively expensive. So I think you don't see it often. So it's like a real treat to get to see that when you do. I also like the I mean, minimalism I think is an aspect of, or a thread here, and like I picked up the minimal poems,
Oh, yeah.
Aram Saroyan, and it's kind of a bold decision to, and I think that the minimal text necessitates it, but each page is dedicated to the poem, you know.
Could
Sometimes
you
it's
read
one
us just
word.
a few pages at random?
Say again?
Oh, could you read us a couple pages of Aaron Soroyan's poetry?
Oh yeah, yeah.
I'm not
So
sure if
some of them
anyone
are
in this
just,
class has ever seen anything like this before.
yeah, some of them are just one word poems. Some of them are whole stanzas, and most of them are really funny. Page 91, I crazy.
That's a whole poem?
Yeah, I crazy.
Wow.
And then play it with the spelling, apple with two A's.
That's ridiculous.
And I picked this book back up, you know, sometime around the pandemic because the play with language and concepts and the absurdism was so satisfying and fun, and it just felt like a breath of fresh air.
Sure.
Lobsty with two E's. Let's see. And then there's like a few different sections here. That was from a very minimal, I think it was a chapbook maybe called Pages. And then this is some short poems. Let's see. Okay, the title is July. I'll hit you. Sorry, let's start over. July. I'll hit you in July. Sausalito, California is the home of a friend of mine, Richard Kalmar. The scissors was on the newspaper where who would ever see it? Just one line.
That's incredible.
It's just wonderful.
And in terms of like book design, you know, we so often, you know, get a book at the airport where the, you know, like disposable fiction basically, where the margins just don't exist. You know, they cram as many words onto the page as possible. You know, you have to flex it to, you know, get the words out of the gutter. And here's something that's just the opposite, a breath of fresh air, like you said.
Yeah, that's well said about
space.
the opposite. Yeah. Yeah, I hate that experience when you feel like you're damaging the book because you have to pry it open like that.
Yeah, yeah. And interesting too to think of Aaron, a New York guy where things are very tight and congested in the city, and you know the sky is very small. Going to a place like, well, actually, he's your neighbor in California, where the you can look out at a vast expanse of ocean or mountain, and the sky is bigger and clearer, brighter. Interesting.
I love that. I love your take on that New York aspect. That's super interesting. What do you think of this, Kyle? Boxing match. Can you see it?
I can, yes. Is there something underneath the word boxing match?
Yeah, that's what I was.
Oh, maybe I can't see it.
Yeah. It's
It looks like a grid of some sort.
It's all dots, periods.
Oh, I see.
It's really fun. Anyway, this book, the layout and the spaced out aspect of it reminded me of this book, Swish Void, Grant Cross and Kyle Schlesinger.
Oh yeah, I remember that one.
Your collaboration. It seems like one of you wrote the title, the other of you wrote the stanza.
Right.
The stanza is just one word.
Right.
What a romp.
That was a fun book to make. We didn't really have a plan for it. We just decided, actually they were paintings and then they became poems.
Who painted them?
We did. I just called Grant in the morning and I had some big pieces of paper and I brought over some paint brushes, and they were, you know, maybe like 2 by 3 feet. And he would paint a word at the top and then I would paint a word underneath it. And that was our method of composition.
That's incredible. Coupon is upside down.
Yes. Typo.
I really like the font. It looks like a typewriter font, or is it?
I think it's a typewriter font.
Because
why we didn't use a real typewriter, I don't remember.
It looks like a, see how that's distressed? It looks like you actually used a typewriter.
Yeah, I think they used, it's from P22 Type Foundry, and I think that they used a real typewriter to make the typewriter font.
I'm into it. It says, I suggest getting, well, you left me a nice little card. It made
Oh.
me laugh. You described how, what kind of activity I might do while reading this.
Oh. I don't remember writing that.
Anyway, this one's great. Handstands upside down too.
Oh yeah,
Handstand podium.
right. What else you got?
What else? Simone Kearney, Days, Belladonna. Beautiful, beautiful poems in here, or it's one poem. And it's all broken up. Each line or phrase is broken up by commas through the whole thing. And the form is really, really satisfying, especially how it's expressed in the well, I guess the form is the layout too.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
And the size of the book is pretty interesting. When it's on the shelf, it sticks out a little bit. So you
It's a
kind of want to
landscape format.
pluck it off the shelf.
Right.
I think Alice Notley may have had a form that was similar, where things were broken up by quotation marks.
Uh-huh.
I like this one too, the commas. It's nice. Great poetry too.
All small press publications so far. You haven't broken out anything from the big five, have you?
No, I'm not even sure I have any of that.
Yeah, interesting.
Knife Fork Book, Michael Cavuto.
Oh yeah.
I think this was another book that came to me that I got during the pandemic, and it's just I mean the poems are amazing, and the book is made really, really nicely. It's like this toothy paper. You can't really see it. It's so bright in here. And yeah, just a pretty layout too. Different. Everything is kind of like put way up top at the page.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's beautiful.
Well, we're coming in on 45 minutes, Paul. I think maybe
Wow. We've had fun.
Yeah, yeah. Not to call it quits on show and tell. You got one more?
Oh, just one more. It's
Okay.
really fast. Lucy Sant. It's essays on I don't even know if you could call them that, I guess. Yeah, essays on music, a lot of music stuff and all different things. But this is an incredible cover.
It is amazing.
There should be a Y at the end of this. But I think that Lucy did this cover designed by hand with X-Acto and things like that. Collage. But their collages are incredible. I think lucysant.com. Take a look at lucysant.com visual work. Great stuff.
That's amazing. Huh. I've never seen that before. It's essays on music?
A lot of music, yeah, a lot of writing about music in here, and then some other topics too, like New York, a lot of New York centric writing, stories and essays. Yeah.
Nice. Well, without further ado, may we interview you?
Okay.
Not that we haven't already, a little bit. So here's a question from Nora. Nora says, I would love to know what your writing schedule is like. Do you sit in front of a computer for hours writing until you have run out of ideas? Or do you write for an hour a day?
Thanks for that question. It's interesting because I've always had the same, well, recently, I've had the same writing schedule, I mean, for 15 years or something, where first thing in the morning, I wake up and, have some coffee, have a little snack, maybe some fruit, and just start writing. And never, ever in front of the computer. It's always just in these notebooks. So I'll like handwritten stuff and like little doodles in there.
Wow.
Whatever it is that like feels the freest is what I will sit down and do. So it's not always lines of poetry. Sometimes it's start to a letter or these digressions, you know, whatever is like I think what Dave Hickey says, like you have to always be chewing on something. So
Oh, wow. That's great.
yeah, it's like a good germinal kind of thing to think about, to have in your mind. What are you chewing on? You know, what are you pondering? What are you wrestling with? So I always try to, you know, think about that and then just get it down, whatever the form kind of requires or is required. And then I try to spend some time at some other point typing it up. But I get a little bit, my eyes get strained from spending too much time on the computer. So I often forget about that part of the process. But
Uh-huh.
it's totally necessary because then you're approaching the work in a new way with almost a different brain when you're going through typing it up and editing it. You have to kind of see it with clearer eyes to rework things and weed out the muck. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. And what are your tools? Do you use the same notebook over and over, or do you switch up notebooks? Are you a pen or
Yeah,
pencil kind of person?
I'll show you what I've been doing. I've been using these Japanese Midori notebooks,
Mhm.
making a little collage cover.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. Just from like newspapers and stuff like that, magazines. It's yeah, it's a really fun way to have a keep up notebook, you know, writing. And then there's this nice Pentel pen that I like to use. It's really nice to be able to doodle with it, and the ink flows really nicely for cursive, you know,
Right.
lines. Yeah, that's about it. I guess too, there's, you know, I like to highlight in the book and be able to erase it while sometimes I'm reading before I write or after. It's always nice to be engaging with other writers while you're writing or thinking about writing.
Oh, that's incredible. Could you, I mean, we started with two handwritten books. Could you imagine a facsimile of one of your notebooks as a publication?
Actually, I'm talking with and ideating with Lorraine Lupo, who's started a small press called Slacks Books, and she's going to publish a book of my yeah, I guess facsimiles and things from my notebooks.
Amazing.
Yeah, so there's like this you might be interested in this. There's a I hope I can find something quickly here, but there's a handwritten style that I fell into somehow where all of the letters are in caps and the letters are slanted, and
Yeah.
I just like I was kind of crazed with this way of writing lines of poetry, and I fell into it for a few years, and Lorraine really liked it as well and wants to make a book, and it'll be called Ceremonial Nerve. And
Ceremonial, second word?
nerve.
Nerve.
And so it'll have those things, and then like some of the doodles
Oh, wow.
in the notebooks. So yeah, I'm really excited about that, and it'll be nice to have the best of the, you know, handwritten stuff somehow out there in the world.
That's incredible.
Yeah, I don't have any of it in front of me, but you'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, we got another
drawing.
question for you.
Yeah.
This one's from Rihanna. I would be interested in knowing what inspired this collection of poems, how they all came together for this work.
Yeah, that's a great question. I was thinking about that today. During during the pandemic, I was, as I was describing earlier, lots of us were a whole lot less social, a lot more isolated.
Sure.
And for me, that really kind of compromised in some ways my access to the type of language that we use, writing poems, and for me, writing about art too, and even conversationally, Zoom, FaceTiming with people or seeing people outside. It was like, oh wait, I've kind of forgotten how to have a conversation right now.
Yeah.
um, and so like as a way to just keep a foot in writing and in poetry, I was going outside, like I'd said earlier too. I was going out as much as possible. I was living in Long Beach at the time, and so I was going, riding my skateboard all day, going to the beach, and just writing as much as I could, as much as the inclination sprung up to write poetry and just respond to the way that the land looked and how it made me feel. And a lot of it was a really cool experience of, practicing attention and presence and mindfulness, I guess, through writing, because I started to feel like one with the land, like the way that the landscape seemed in moments. It felt like seemed like the way I felt inside. And that's hard to describe in just a short sentence, but it was a pretty profound experience, and I was trying to express that through the writing. In any case, like, I wanted to express a kind of gratitude that I felt for that experience, because I really needed it at the time.
Wow.
And that really, really contrasts to like the way that I had been writing in the past. Um, and some of that, what I'm about to describe, is also in the manuscript, mostly in the beginning. It's a lot of like things that I would overhear, in conversation or on the bus or on the train or in cafes or restaurants, things that you kind of just pick up when you're out, or things that people, that we say to each other, conversational aspects. So yeah, I was always writing on the train or on the bus and around other people. Just like Kyle, really well. I mean, we pass notebooks around and write each other's inside of each other's poetry.
Sure.
So there's some of that in there too. And I wanted to bring a kind of varied experience to the manuscript.
Yeah. So, when was this manuscript written? What are we looking at here? Are these older poems, new poems,
It's
mishmash?
a bit of everything. Some of those poems in the manuscript are from as long ago as like 2011,
Wow.
and some of them were written in Chicago. Some of them were written in Portland. Some of them in Arizona, in Sedona. That's the Coconino one
Oh yeah.
during the pandemic. Yeah. And then some of the stanzas were written just as recent as like June, during that excitement of coming back to basically the desert
Hmm.
and the beach.
Wow. And all in the notebooks. You've never been a person who writes on your phone or in front of the computer.
No, yeah. Although I had a job a long time ago. I had a job where um, there was quite a bit of downtime, and so I would be making wigs, as Alan Bernheimer told me is the term for writing poetry on either it might be company paper or or the time on the clock.
Oh, sure.
Worth noting, I don't do that anymore, but
Mhm.
this was an old version of me.
Oh, okay. We won't tell your boss. Oh, okay. Here we have a question. We're getting into the design part of the conversation, I guess. Victoria would like to know, what do you want to express with the type of font on the cover page? I think she means like the title page. Um, do you want something bold or whimsical?
Cool. I like that question. I think bold.
Both?
My say what?
Oh, did you say both or bold?
Bold. Yeah.
Bold.
Yeah. I might be off on this, but I think I shy away from whimsy. I mean, whimsical as far as that type of thing goes.
Yeah.
Maybe some of the lines of poetry are kind of whimsical, probably, now that I'm thinking about it. But yeah,
Certainly.
for the typeface and that page, I think bold sounds just about right. Something that seems not to say loud, but right out there in the open,
Right. Right.
clear, something clear and simple, I think is the best.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when you combine a sort of well, I think whimsical is just a nice word to keep in play. But when you combine a whimsical font and a whimsical idea, you kind of get the like retirement party or birthday party banner, you know, like you
Yeah,
know, sort of that second grade teacher font.
right. Yeah.
Super.
And then I might want to retire, writing poetry after that.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, well,
Um,
that's a good question.
did you ever,
Um,
do you guys ever talk about like the interdependence of things like text and image or font and content? It seems like what you had said, it rings true to that, to where you got a whimsical stanza. If you also have a whimsical font, they're doing two things that, you know what I mean? One of them could be doing something else, helping the job of, yeah.
well, I think the Aram Saroyan's collection of minimal poems that you presented earlier um, would have an entirely different meaning if you know, I think that they're using a very traditional, as I recall, it's like a traditional Caslon font. The cover of the book is sort of like an eggshell white with black and red lettering. Like it's very traditional looking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, right. Whereas if they dressed it up to be more whimsical,
Hmm.
I think the humor would actually be lost.
There you go.
Um, like one more.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice.
You know, this is a great book for ideas. This is
Right.
another LA friend of yours, Ed Ruchet, um, where the pages are just sort of like this, words that are sort of illustrated. 12 priest, warm auditorium, speed bumps, devil or angel, you know.
I
So the
love that
form and
book.
content is, I don't want to say more literal, but more pronounced than in the Saroyan work that we were
Right.
looking at earlier. And I think Jennifer must have read your mind or vice versa, because Jennifer wanted to know, are there any images or colors that you feel connect strongly to the work as a whole? Are there any images or colors that you feel connect strongly to the work as a whole?
um, well, there was a drawing that I did, which I wanted to have on the cover, but I don't think it's a good cover image because the color is too faint. It's this it's a drawing of a man walking through the desert with a pack on his back, and he's just, he's just kind of shoulder to the wheel, but of the little dotted road.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I guess the faint sort of pinkish color, it seems good for the way that the writing feels to me too. It seems like light and arid, not dense and dark and all that sort of stuff. But there is, I think, maybe like a bit of darkness in there, and maybe that's conveyed in the drawing, like of the shadow the figure is kind of leaning toward.
Yeah.
Um, and then like there's a lot of like dust and sun and dirt and sense of like the desert or open space, I think, in there. So those kinds of images too. And I've been doing like a lot of drawings of um, landscapes with the sun and the moon, just like really simple, almost like yeah, ancient type feel to it. So yeah.
Oh, amazing. Um, okay. Jumping ahead, all right? Andy would like to know. Oh, okay. Andy said, I believe only the first section includes a quote. This is, I think he's referring to the earlier version of the manuscript called Out and Out. And by quote, I think he means the epigraph.
Mm-hmm.
Um, would you like other quotes before the second and third sections of the book?
Yeah. I
I
think
mean, there's so many great nuggets in here. I feel like you're a quote finder,
well, that's kind of in
combing the
the
beach with your. Some people have metal detectors. You're looking for quotes.
yeah, I always write them down in my notebooks, and
Yeah.
it's just one of those things that kind of like that Dave Hickey uh quotation I mentioned earlier. It's
Mhm.
like, things that um people who came before us have said that can remind us of where we want to be,
Sure.
um it's just the same as age old, aphorisms that you want to like have on hand. um and also, yeah, but the funny thing is I have a cento in the manuscript now, which is made up entirely of quotes from other writers.
Oh,
So
amazing.
yeah, so I think you are in that too. I'm searching through the manuscript right now.
Yeah. And Bill Berkson was so good at that. I mean, he
Yeah.
could almost talking to him, it was almost sort of like a collage of quotes that he found, or that was a way of sort of like like framing the building. It was just this like structure of other people's comments, and then he like built the walls around that.
I like that. Yeah. It really feels like that's what it does when you kind of engage in quotations and passages and things like that of other writers.
Sure.
The one I was thinking about is called intermittent back turning is a measure of self-care. And the first one, which is, a line in the poem, but it's a quotation by you, and it says, "We all know one word doesn't mean anything."
Right.
um, so there you have it.
But of course, I've been proven wrong today by Aram Saroyan.
Yep, yep. And we always are open to being, proven wrong or to contradict ourselves. It's
Of
a part of the
course.
game.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, well, let's talk about that. The epigraph that you've chosen. Could you read it or recite it?
Oh, to the book or to that
Yeah.
section? Yeah, yeah, definitely. So it's Paul Clay. How can I most freely throw a bridge from the inner to the outer?
Yeah. It takes a very prominent place in the book as the only epigraph. With all of these passages passing through your notebooks and mind, how does that set the stage for this manuscript?
Yeah, I think it's an important idea for me because it goes back to the experience I was having particularly like during the pandemic, where it's I'm being kind of barraged with memories and um, thoughts that seem of like an utter importance when you're having them without you know um, the social engagement with others to kind of offset that or to unload ideas with other people. So I was engaging a lot with the natural world, in my notebooks and in my thinking and going around. Um, and it seemed like an important experience to have, to recognize that it's not all happening in one's head.
Right.
The exterior world, the natural world, especially, and other people, other living beings, um, they're inextricable with us, I guess cosmically. And so it seemed like a nice reminder when I had like come upon that passage in his journals. It's like in the Paul Clay Diaries book, I think. And hopefully it rings true or resonates in the poetry, that sense of inside and outside being linked or one.
Right.
Um,
Right.
Hopefully that makes sense. I had this really incredible experience in Sedona where I'm looking out at the red rock mountains, and I just felt like, in this way that is almost indescribable, that it was in like the what I was seeing looked and felt like my interior world. It's almost pointless to say it out loud because it doesn't make sense, but it was like I said before, it was like a profound experience to have, and I think really, really important when, like, one is beginning to believe that one's thoughts are of utter importance and they're real and true and all these things. They just pass, they just come and go.
Mm-hmm.
So it helps to know that we're not just our thoughts. We're, in some way we're linked to all of, what's living.
I love this transcendental side of you, Paul.
Yeah, I don't know. uh yeah, I don't know if I entirely even rationally understand it, but I'm letting it happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to end with a curveball.
Here we go.
Curveball from Elena. What does literary success look like to you?
Oh God, you're right.
I knew I had to stump you either at the beginning, no, or that Elena would stump you either at the beginning of our conversation or at the end. So
I gotta tell you that,
success.
yeah, that's almost like a nonsense word that you kind of want to play with or uh, subvert.
Mhm.
um I think so I had this little book called Little Advantages, published by Couch Press in, I think it was 2011, and I sent this little chapbook to a few people. You, I think, were one of those people, and Charles North was, who was a poet in New York who I just admire so much, and um, become we've had a good correspondence over the years. But he was one of my favorite poets at the time, and I didn't know him. And I sent him a copy of that chapbook, and I got this postcard in the mail from him not long after that, and it just blew me away, the fact of just getting a postcard from Charles North. But it was what he had to say about the chapbook was just so kind and generous.
Mm.
And it seemed like he loved the chapbook. And at the time I was just floored. And I said, this is the reason why we do this stuff. Like,
Mm.
it's the book was probably in a run of like 200 or less, and it made the entire experience worthwhile. Just, you know, hearing that sort of sincere response from someone that you admire. And I had a similar experience when I had a couple of small books published during the pandemic, and I got this letter in the mail from you, Kyle, and it was just short of like raving about the book. And it was another exact, you know, for me, that exact feeling of like, you know, that's success to me.
Uh-huh.
Getting that kind of response from someone that you admire, and you know, so that's it for me. I mean, it really is great to have a sense of, you know, that the book or the print run or whatever is doing something in the world. Like conceptually, that's nice. Like if it's selling, but I think that, you know, sales and awards and all that sort of stuff can really get in the way of the thing that we love the most about this, which is engaging and also just keeping the practice going. So I try to keep it small, the successes, you know, try to keep them,
Wow. That's amazing.
yeah, you know, so without getting in one's way. That's the, I think, the job number one.
Right, right. I think that's a wonderful, well, I think that's kind of a wonderful way to tie a bow around it. And
Cool, thanks.
I think you've given us a lot of inspiration to get to work, and hopefully, and also I should just say, you know, thank you for trusting us with your poetry. I mean, this is like, uh, you know, like an opportunity. We're sort of like midwives to your words. You know, we have this opportunity to help you give birth to something that's going to be out in the world for others to enjoy and savor and learn from. So I feel very, very lucky that you've shared this opportunity with us.
Well, thanks, Kyle. Yeah, it's really, it's such an honor, you know. And yeah, thanks to all the students. Thanks for your thoughtful questions, and I hope this, yeah, I hope that this has been inspiring and thought provoking for sure.
Okay, well, I will stop recording, and then, you know, you and I can chit chat for a moment. Okay.
Yeah, cool.
Let's see if this works.
Thank you guys.